Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have guest Jaden Rae. Jaden is a television chef, award-winning publisher of SteamyKitchen.com, and author of the Steamy Kitchen Cookbook. Celebrating its 16th year, Steamy Kitchen is one of the biggest blogs in the world, with nearly 500 million page views and more than 75 million users. Jaden also hosts the Steamy Kitchen YouTube channel. She is regularly featured on syndications such as Daytime Show, The List, and has been one of the featured chefs on ABC's Recipe Rehab show. Welcome, Jaden. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Well, I'm really looking forward to talking with you because there was a couple things that I was listening to some videos on your YouTube channel, and I was like, oh my God, these are just such great ideas. So I can't wait to dive into that as well.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. And so you and I are going to talk about beyond the button mushrooms, right? So healing with mushrooms. So there has been an interest in magic mushrooms or psilocybin, and it has skyrocketed, 64% since 2019. And it's resulting in shows like Fantastic Fungi, which I love that show. That was so interesting. And I've talked about the magic of microdosing on my show before, and I love to dismantle the myths around psilocybin and have real people share their real life stories about the healing benefits of mushrooms. And so, Jaden, you have a very powerful story about your son, Nathan, and his healing journey, which involved mushrooms. So could you share your story or Nathan's story and, what led you to where you are today?
Well, actually, two different things led me to where I am today. One is my son, Nathan, having epilepsy and seizures that I had to figure out on my own how to treat. And then the other person is me and, battling my own anxiety and my own depression, finding that traditional medication and antidepressants just did not agree with my body. And I think you understand that as well with your background as well. But, to start off with my son, when he was young, he had seizures and epilepsies, and we had like a cocktail of medications that we gave him from the neurologist, from all of the doctors that we were seeing. And they just could not figure out why he was having seizures. And the medication actually made him suicidal.
Yeah. And I feel like oftentimes when that happens, Jaden, you've got so many doctors involved. They're just prescribing and they aren't communicating with each other. Right. So that can be one of the side effects of taking too many prescription drugs.
Well, that too, but also, you've heard all the commercials for all those prescription medications, and the side effects include, and suicidal thoughts are part of a medication for the warning for, anti-seizure medicine. And I'm like, why would you give this to kids? I think he was like 9 years old at the time. He was so tiny, 7 or 9.
9-year-olds shouldn't be thinking about suicide.
I had to pull him out of school. And then I decided, then I decided, you know what, I'm going to see about finding an alternate route to healing him. And that's when I dove into cannabis and CBD and Charlotte's Web. And, this was a long time ago. This was before recreation. This was even before medical. And then finally medical opened up in Nevada. And I'm like, okay, time to stop buying from the black market.
I know. Time to stop doing stuff on the down low, right?
I know. And, then I started going to the medical dispensaries and, made my own concoctions, because last thing I want to do is get my kid stoned, right? Trying to treat him.
Well, and you want to know what's in the ingredients too. I think that's really important. Yeah,
exactly. So I had to teach myself, like at home, in my kitchen, extractions with cannabis and make topicals for him and make RSO, which is that he took a little tiny rice-sized bit of CBD and created everything on my own. And that gave me the confidence to then years later explore things like magic mushrooms. And with my anxiety, panic attacks, I had a very traumatic childhood, and so much has happened. But in the meantime, taking all of these different SSRIs was horrible. I was gaining weight. I was even more depressed, and it just wasn't worth it. And while antidepressants can kind of shave off those deep, dark feelings, it also cuts off the happy feelings as well. So you're kind of stuck in this limbo.
It makes you very numb. I was on Lexapro for maybe a year, and the first couple months I felt really good, but after that I was like just a shell in my body. I felt like, and I got to a point where I said, I've got to try. This was many, many years ago. And I'm like, I've got to try something new. So like you, I started to move more towards a holistic approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to tell you, especially with psilocybin, it's not addictive. For me personally, I don't have side effects. I don't need it every day anymore. And I've got to a point where I'm pretty stable. Like, once in a while I'll wake up and say, I think I need a little extra support today, and then I'll do the microdose. But, now after 2 years of doing this, I don't need anything anymore. And that's the best feeling, when you don't rely on anything.
It is, Jaden. And I had a show yesterday, and it was amazing because it was all about healing from within. And I talked about training wheels, and I do look at psilocybin as a training wheel. It's something that helps us get out of the pain, the suffering that we may be in. And then we move in to healing, into homeostasis. And once we get there, we don't have to keep taking it all the time. We just notice when our body says, hey, like you said, I might need a little extra support today. And so, Jaden, you had some excellent statistics on your website that I'd like to share, specifically around SSRIs and around psilocybin. And so 1 in 10 Americans turn to SSRIs. That's pretty significant. And so SSRIs, also known as antidepressants, and they turn to them to manage their depression and anxiety, with more than half of them battling an addiction to the actual SSRI itself. And that was not my case. I didn't take it that long, but I have several friends who have, had that problem, and many people I worked in healthcare for many years, and I did see that was a common addiction, was to SSRIs, or there was a fear of weaning yourself off of them and knowing, what was going to happen. And so, a recent John Hopkins study found that psilocybin treatment was 4 times more effective than traditional medications for treating depression. And it's natural, right? It comes from the earth. And I think that's fantastic in itself. And so in another study in 2017, researchers actually studied tobacco use, and they reported that 67% of participants quit smoking after psilocybin treatment. And also it was effective in treating those suffering with alcohol abuse. So that in itself is amazing. It's awesome. So there are natural alternatives out there for us to turn to. And, unfortunately, some states, I know, it's banned. You can't, it's not legal, right? So, but here's the thing. So is marijuana, and now marijuana is become legal. So it's just a matter of time that, these things will become legal. So
isn't it crazy that just it's one ingredient. You go out in the forest and you can pick it, right? And, or, with cannabis, you grow a plant and you pick it. That should not be illegal.
I know. And why they make it illegal is because they just don't want us to heal. They want to keep us in that state of fight, flight, or freeze response. And so we're waking up to that. You know what? No more of this.
Right? And I like what you said about, mushrooms as just something to help you get to a certain state, and you don't have to rely on it. It's just a tool in your tool belt. And I would say, the best way to describe it, what you just said, was that microdosing on mushrooms allow you to fully be in the present lane. So you're not spending so much time ruminating, which is spinning about the past, right?
Yes.
And you're not spending so much time worrying, which is spinning about the future. And it allows you to have this very wide present lane that you are, operating in. And from that space, you can make better decisions. You have better thoughts. You have just a little bit more time between stimulus and the way you respond. So that little bit, that time that you get, that extra time, allows you to be, make better decisions from that space.
100%, because you're not in a state of fight, flight, or freeze response. It's like when you're in those states of anxiety, you have a hard time making rational decisions because you're your mind is all over the place. And so Jaden, let's talk about what microdosing is. Because I think when we say magic mushrooms, people immediately think of the Grateful Dead and we're on a trip and we're just woohoo every day. And people think, well, how can I take psilocybin and go to work, or how can I do these things and function? So let's talk about what microdosing is, so people, maybe we can dispel some myths here of what people may think.
And I'm going to do a little show and tell. Okay.
Oh, this is fun. Send me the energy.
I know. I'm going to show you what magic mushrooms look like. They look like mushrooms, but they all are. There's many different species. Like there are probably millions and millions of species of mushrooms, and we've only identified, maybe 5% of them. It's just crazy that there are so many strains of mushrooms. And in fact, humans are more closely related to fungus than we are anything else. So, there's a lot of affinity for using, mushrooms being able to help humans. So these are 2 psilocybin containing mushrooms. They look very different, don't they?
They look very different.
This one was dehydrated. Let me see what strain this is. So I grow, this is Malabar. I had to teach myself how to grow my own medicine, because I'm a mom of 2 teenage boys. I don't have my personal drug dealer. So
you got to be yourself, right?
I had to teach myself.
Your own shaman.
And then this one's called Nutcracker, and this one's freeze dried. And this looks exactly like the moment I picked it.
That is so
freeze drying process is beautiful. I love freeze drying my mushrooms, and this is dehydrated. But yeah, this is what mushrooms look like. So microdosing is taking a psilocybin containing mushroom or other substances, but I'm going to focus on mushrooms for right now, but only taking like 1/20th or 1/10 of a trip dose. So if normally you would take 1 gram for, an experience, then a microdose is 100 milligrams, or even
a third of that.
Yeah. I would say most people should start around 100 milligrams. And that means it's so super tiny. I'll show you what that might even look like. It would look like this.
Oh my gosh, I thought you were going to pick the other side.
No. And what I do is I take those mushrooms, I grind it up, and then I put them into capsules just like this. And this is my vitamin every day. It is just a tiny, tiny amount of mushrooms, and it's non-intoxicating, meaning like you can operate like normal. If you feel something, then you probably took too much. That's no longer a microdose. Some people like, oh, I took like 4 of these capsules. How come I feel so weird? I'm like, that's not a microdose, that's a macrodose. And so I think of it.
It might be good to do your research before you start.
I know, right? I think of it more like a vitamin than anything. So when you take a vitamin C, you don't feel anything different, right? Something's, that it's good for you, but you don't feel anything. So microdosing is very similar to that. The most you should feel is like a little tingle on your skin after, 20 minutes in, and a little bit of tingles on your cheek, and maybe like an uptick in energy, but that's it. And any more than that, that's a little bit too much. So you back off. Microdosing regularly it just helps you with neuroplasticity, so making new connections. Like I said earlier, it allows you to be in the present moment a lot longer than you normally would.
So is it beneficial to set an intention before you microdose, to set an intention for what you'd like for it to do for you?
Every day. I think it's important to set your intentions, whether or not you microdose, because, with microdosing, you don't do it every single day. So a lot of people will recommend you do it like 1 day on, 2 days off, or how I started was 5 days on, Monday through Friday, and then take the weekends off. That helped my schedule, and it just allowed me to better remember, did I take it today, or do I take it today, or, back to intentions, every morning starting off with an intention of what, how do you want to curate your day? I think that is so important. And I know you do that, Tanya. How do I curate this? What kind of experiences do I want to create today?
Absolutely. And so, what were some of the benefits that you started to recognize when you and Nathan started microdosing?
Well, Nathan is not on microdosing mushrooms. He is no longer having seizures whatsoever. He's seizure free,
awesome.
epilepsy free. He's a normal kid, he's a senior in high school and now is so happy. I'm so proud of him. When he had his seizures, I had to pull him out of school. He could not go to school with all of the headaches that he had. And, of course, the suicidal thoughts. I want to make sure I'm mama bear, I want to make sure I take care of my boy. So he is just, done with it all. I'm so happy for him. And, for me, my benefits, I would say, like I said, not being in a ruminating state of spinning about the past anymore. But I would say if I had to say in conclusion, microdosing has helped me with, it would be like complete congruency. So to me, that means the voice in my head, everyone has that voice, right? The voice in my head aligns with the love and energy in my heart, aligns with the, my actions, the love that I give to people. So that is complete. That is absolutely congruent. The voice aligns with the love in my heart, which aligns and matches and congruent with the energy that I give out to the world.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so amazing. And so, Jaden, not all mushrooms are magic mushrooms. That's what you had mentioned before, meaning hallucinogenic or, all psilocybin. And so there are thousands of edible mushrooms that exist that provide amazing benefits to the mind, body, and the spirit, right? And so personally, I incorporate 12 different ones in my daily cacao. I set an intention in the morning when I drink my raw organic cacao, and I add my mushrooms to it. So it's got a mix of reishi, turkey tail, shiitake, maitake, all of them, And so let's talk very briefly about some of the benefits of those types of mushrooms. And I call those medicinal, but I think psilocybin's medicinal too. So that's what I said. What do we call it? Non-psilocybin mushrooms?
It's called functional. We call them functional mushrooms, medicinal or functional mushrooms. The psilocybin containing mushrooms is in its own separate category. So medicinal, gourmet, and functional mushrooms are something like lion's mane, which is good for your mind. Lion's mane it looks like a little puffy hairy ball, and it's the cutest mushroom. I love it so much. But there's a lot of people. If you're looking on YouTube and look for recipes, lion's mane recipes, people are using this mushroom in place of meat and seafood because of the texture of the mushroom. But more importantly, this mushroom has been known to help with your brain and your brain health. So anyone with Alzheimer's or schizophrenia or just getting older in age, like this year I'm going to be 51. And so, so I am starting to incorporate lion's mane a lot more. I grow lion's mane and then I will freeze dry them. And then I'll add that into soups and to stews, whatever type of recipe I can incorporate and throw some dried lion's mane mushrooms in is, it's so easy to use into any of my cooking.
Yeah. And so, I was at a health food store one day and I met this older man. I thought he was in I would have guessed his 60s, but we got to chatting because I was looking at the different tinctures of the different mushrooms. And I had said, which one do you take or whatever? And he goes, honestly, I take reishi. He goes, and I'm 92 years old. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. If I had to guess, I would have said 60. I would have said that. And he said, I've taken this for 30 years and it has helped me anti-age. He goes, I feel fantastic. He goes, I run marathons. And I'm like, you're 92 and you're running marathons. So I know that reishi is fantastic for anti-aging. I love turkey tail. I got my mom on turkey tail. She was having some issues with her lungs. And I know that turkey tail is excellent for lung health, for grief, because I work, with the emotions as well. And so these mushrooms don't just work on a physical basis. They also work on releasing traumas and deep emotional attachments as well. And so, I really do encourage those of you out there who are watching or listening to do some research on functional mushrooms. If you're not into the psilocybin, that's cool, but I started off with functional mushrooms. That was where I started to dabble, and I noticed immediate results. And they're so easy. You can put them in your coffee, put them in like I do in my cacao. You can add them to your recipes. But Jaden, you're a chef, okay? So you're taking it to a whole new level here. You actually incorporate these mushrooms into your recipes, and you have magic. I looked at your website. You have magic mushroom butter, and you have these beautiful seasonal blends. And so, you also talk about extractions. What are some ways that we as non-chefs or, people who just in their everyday cooking, how can we incorporate some of these, whether they're functional mushrooms or psilocybin, into our daily lives and into our recipes?
Well, there's, like you mentioned with your coffee and your cacao, not coffee, you can do some research and go to Whole Foods, go to any health food store, and you'll find some mushroom coffee and mushroom teas. That's really simple to incorporate into your everyday. And, I love doing spice blends. So, mushrooms that are dried actually have a beautiful umami flavor. And I use a lot of that in place of other seasonings. So I'll take any type of dried mushroom, anything, any type of dried mushrooms that I want, throw them in my blender, add some nutritional yeast, garlic powder, onion powder, some smoked paprika, give it a whirl, blend it. And now that is the most delicious tasting seasoning that's all natural that you've created in 10, 15 seconds. That is a super simple way to incorporate some of the medicinal benefits of mushrooms in your everyday cooking. So you're going to scramble some eggs, add a little seasoning at the end.
That's a great idea. And I live here in North Idaho, and we have farmers markets that usually start in May and go through October. And we have mushroom people that actually grow mushrooms, and they bring this beautiful variety of mushrooms. And so that's, where I get my real mushrooms, but through the other seasons, I'll use the powdered mushroom. But I've been able to try different mushrooms, blue oyster mushrooms, and, just different ones that I may not have bought at the store, but I'm like, oh, I'm talking to the farmer who actually grew this. So what advice do you have for people that may want to start growing their own mushrooms? Because you seem to be doing this, and you've done
it is so easy. It is. I love growing mushrooms and watching them, especially the lion's mane. That's fun. You can go online to North Spore. Amazon will sell North Spore grow kits. I highly recommend them. I met some of their people just last week at a trade show here in Las Vegas, and it just fell in love with this company. I love what they stand for, love their product. So, you can get a kit, and all you have to do is cut open the bag and mist it with water. And then, a couple of weeks later, you got mushrooms to eat that you can harvest and eat.
Anybody can do that.
I know, right? As for the magic side, that one is a little bit more difficult, and rightfully so. You don't want to make magic mushrooms so easy to grow that anyone can grow. You want to make sure that it is medicine. I consider it medicine. And yes, sometimes I party with mushrooms, but really, to me, I have so much respect for the psilocybin mushrooms, as well as all the other mushrooms that, I love growing them, because I love seeing something, go from spore to medicine that I take that makes me feel good,
Yeah.
But, it is a little more difficult to grow those type of mushrooms and define, just because it's illegal. So I want to make sure that I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything illegal. But if you are interested in doing a lot more research, go on YouTube and start listening to podcasts that talk about psilocybin and different plant medicine. And, even beyond mushrooms, there are herbs and tinctures that you can take. The one that I'm just trying out now is called Holy Lotus Divinity Tincture, and this is blue lotus flower.
Oh,
and this is really good for emotional health. This is very similar to, it's very loving, and it's very it just supports you in that very feminine way. So I'm enjoying this quite a bit now, and this you can buy online. The one I bought from Dreamcatcher Botanicals. A good friend, Brooke, turned me on to this, and she goes, "You have to try this. This is so amazing." So beyond even mushrooms, look for plant medicines, all natural plant medicines, and, look into that versus, popping a pill.
Absolutely, Jaden. It's so important. I love that. I love Blue Lotus. I actually have a Dreamtime tea that has Blue Lotus in it, and Mugwort is fantastic for that as well. If you're struggling with sleeping, try some Blue Lotus, try some Mugwort. These are things that help you. I was using it for the purpose of astral traveling, but I started to realize that I was feeling fantastic in the morning because I was getting into that deep REM sleep, and these herbal remedies were helping me and assisting me into that very deep dream time. And that's where we heal. When we are in those deep states of dreaming, our body starts healing in that
Wow.
process. And so
Yeah.
I love that. And for those of you out there, if you can't grow your own mushrooms or you can't get your hands on them, like me in the winter months, make sure if you are buying a powdered mixture to make sure it's more fruit bodying than it is mycelium. So that way it has much more of the nutrients and the minerals in it. And you might want to do your research on that, because there are a variety of brands out there. And if they're using mostly mycelium, you're still getting some of the benefits, but you're not getting as many of the benefits as you would if you were doing the fruit bodying.
Right. And actually, we should probably spend just a little bit of time on safe sourcing, because, here I am promoting microdosing, especially on something that's a psychedelic. And I want to make sure that you just don't go out and say, hey, I'm going to go find some mushrooms to buy. So let's talk about safe sourcing a bit. And, for me, the best advice that I can give you is to go on Instagram, for example, and look for people who are cultivating magic mushrooms, people who take pride in their work, and they'll always show their latest harvest, or the different fruits that they have available. And when I say fruit, I mean mushrooms, because actually mushroom is the fruit of the fungus. So look for cultivators, mushroom cultivators, that are actually actively posting about their grow, and then you get a good energy feel for them. You look at the comments, who's asking questions, and are they answering the questions in a respectful manner? See who's following them, and is there anyone that you recognize? Try to find some clues on where you want to source your mushrooms. And generally, the people who are cultivating mushrooms will either also provide them, sell them, or know of somebody. So that's a really good place to start. But do your homework. Look at the comments. Look at the quality of the followers, not just the quantity, and make sure that, when you send them a question, that they answer respectfully. That's what I'm looking for. And that's the best way to find medicines versus, picking up, trying to find someone that will locally that, that may or may not have it. And I highly recommend buying whole fruits instead of ground, because when they're ground, you don't know what else is mixed in there.
Very true.
Very whole fruit, just like this whole mushroom, you know exactly what's nothing else is mixed in here. And then buy a spice grinder, and then buy capsules, empty capsules, and a little tiny scoop, and a milligram scale, not a gram scale, a milligram scale, so that you can measure out 50 milligrams if you need 100 milligrams. So
yes. And that's some great advice, Jaden, some great advice. And, there's going to be a lot of people who will post under this video on YouTube once I put it out there that, hey, go to this guy, and hey, do this, and hey, do that. So I encourage all of you to research whoever posts under this video, because I know when I've done a few other shows on psilocybin, immediately the comments started to blow up, and people were, being guided to these people. And I don't know if they were reputable or not, but I just made sure to mention in the comments that you do your research. Yes.
And this is what I would do. Find someone that you really respect. That is, a figure in the psychedelic or microdosing community, and see who they're following and see where they're commenting, because generally that's a good place to start, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Jaden, I want to switch gears a little bit, because you helped transform your life by living purposefully, and you started something called Magical Moments. And I want you to talk a little bit about this, because I think, anytime we are utilizing plant medicine, it's so important to live purposefully when we are doing that. It's not just that we're just on autopilot and waking and baking and, doing all this stuff that I think many of us get programmed to do when it comes to whether it's magic mushrooms or cannabis or whatnot. We want to make sure that we're living intentionally and that we can harness the energy of this plant medicine. So tell us a little bit about Magical Moments and how this was created and came about.
Well, actually, creating magical moments is my life motto. I have two life mottos, and I'll tell you about the first one. The first one is actually inward. It's simple pleasures deeply felt. And so that means for me, like taking moments to appreciate the small, tiny things. So simple pleasures deeply felt. That's one of my life mottos. And my other life motto is more outwards, and that's called creating magical moments. And so every morning, you speak about intention, every morning I'm thinking about what kind of magical moments can I create for other people, whether they're total strangers or my kids or my family or people that I love, or just acquaintance. What kind of small magical moment? And it could be just a little note. It could be flowers. It could could be a delivered meal. It could be just a phone call, and it could be a compliment to somebody. But, creating magical moments is my navigation system and of life. And so when I think of, creating intention, everyone says I'll create intentions, but it's creating intentions and then living them, being them. And so, I encourage people to create a life motto for themselves. And it's not about finding life purpose. Now that's very different. It's not about, having a singular purpose. This is about living purposefully, living with intention, and starting your day knowing what kind of, I keep saying curate, what kind of day you want to curate.
Yeah, in living in the present moment, I think that's something that all of us as a society are beginning to learn how to do, because we've all lived in the past, or we're living in the future, or like you talked about earlier, it's that, those emotions that come up when we're living in the past, or worrying about the future. So bringing ourselves into that present moment is so crucial. And anytime we're doing anything with plant medicine, it can only enhance your intention behind it. And so I do that with my raw cacao, in the morning, just setting that intention and then allowing myself to go with the flow throughout the day. And so, Jaden, what are some ways that people can bring more magic into their lives?
Well, I think maybe a very simple way to describe it is the metaphor of, be a magnet, not a billboard. And to me, a billboard is an advertisement. And it's actually very similar to what you were, something that I picked up from one of your videos of thoughts are more masculine energy, right? And emotions are more feminine energy. Well, to me, a billboard is very masculine energy, right? Those are my thoughts. And
that's really
and
yeah.
Billboards scream, look at me, right? Versus being a magnet, or a little bit more on the feminine side, is I'm attracting things towards me. So I'm always thinking about, okay, how can I attract things versus advertising, being a billboard? So be a magnet, not a billboard.
I love that. That's awesome. Because, when you're being a magnet, you're in the receiving mode, and the receiving mode is a feminine energy, right? So our left side of the body is the feminine and our right side is the masculine. So when we're utilizing that receiving energy, we are attracting things into our lives that can come with flow and grace, right? Versus trying to grab for things and trying to control and take hold of things. It's really just learning. And I'm not saying masculine's bad or feminine's bad.
Not at all.
It's all about the balance of the energies and balancing the giving and the receiving. It's a beautiful, harmonious cycle to be able to give and then be able to open yourself up to receiving. And I see this oftentimes with, I'm called the existential empath, and empaths are very, very much givers, right? We give, and then we feel a little guilty when we receive, right? So, and this is part of what, my learning process is, no, we are very, very worthy of receiving. And it really just comes down to balance. And I love that analogy that you used, because it really is, when you're aligned with your heart, you will attract naturally the people, the resources, the places to you, right? And you've obviously been doing a really good job at that, because your blog is amazing. It's taking off. You are, teaching people basic concepts that they can help to improve their daily lives. And so, Jaden, talk a little bit more about all the services that you provide and how people can connect with you if they'd like to.
Yeah. So, I've spent 18 years running a food blog. It's still running. It's 18 years old. I've been doing this before Instagram was even born. And so it's been a very, very long time. My specialty in the food side is live television. So I'll, record a live segment from my own kitchen here, or sometimes I'll go to a television studio and it's a 4-minute short segment on morning shows. That's my jam. I love that. And then a couple of years ago, when I started pivoting towards and doing so much research into the benefits of medicinal mushrooms and psychedelics, I started, I do both. So I have a team that helps me run steamykitchen.com, where we are one of the the most trafficked food blogs in the world. And then that gives me the brain space and the time to pursue things like this Magic and Glow community. So we're at magicandglow.com, and every Monday we hold a free Zoom at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, and we just talk about microdosing, and we talk about psychedelics, and we talk about plant medicines, and we answer questions, and we teach you about how to test your substances for purity as well as for fentanyl. You have to be worried about that as well.
Oh yeah.
How do you incorporate microdosing into your daily lives, and how do you grow? How do you, so many different questions that normally people were like, where do I go to ask these questions and someone not judge me, right? So every Monday, that's what we have. You head over to magicandglow.com, join the free community, and we'll, every Monday we talk. And then the other project that I'm so excited about that I think it would align very much with what you do is I've got a team, and we've got a date scheduled for May and June for this event, but it's psychedelic journeys without psychedelics.
Ooh.
So there's so many people that are interested in having a psychedelic journey, but they're scared. They're like, I have to take drugs.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's reframe this to, medicines instead of using the word drugs. But even better, I can lead you through an experience without anything, without the psychedelics. You want a taste of a healing journey? We can do that. So we lead people through, we get them into a very almost like relaxed, open-hearted, open mind state with music, with binaural beats, with a guided meditation, and we lead you through a beautiful, beautiful healing journey. And then you get to experience that, that beauty of wonder and love and grace. And it's almost like a guided meditation, but lots extra that we incorporate into our practice. So we've got a couple events scheduled, and hopefully this will be something that people really enjoy. It gives them a little taste of what a psychedelic journey could be like with the visuals, sacred geometry, and super excited to do that. So those are the two projects that I have.
I love that you're doing that, because that's going to be great. Because I know for me, I've only done magic mushrooms twice. And the first time I did it, everyone was telling me, you're going to have a bad trip. You're going to have a bad trip. And I didn't play into that belief system. And it was very beautiful. They did a shamanic ceremony and cleared us with the drums and set an intention. And I had one of the most amazing experiences. And I think I did 5 milligrams during that, that particular healing session. And for me, it was a very beautiful experience. But I do think that many people have a misconception that, you could potentially have a bad trip. So I always say, before you take psilocybin or even cannabis for that matter, make sure that you're in the right energy,
right. And they call that
around or in the
they
right
call that set and setting. So this term gets thrown around all the time. No one really knows what it means, but so I'm going to simplify it. Set means mindset. So everything inside your body.
Yeah.
Okay. And setting means your environment. So everything outside your body. So everything inside your body and everything outside a body. It's always good to manage that before you go on any psychedelic trip. Just because that stuff can influence you. Imagine if someone was just like you telling you, you're going to have a bad trip. You're going to have a bad trip. Guess what? You're going to have a bad trip if you don't, if you're not careful, if you don't manage that. So, with what we're doing with psychedelic journeys without psychedelics, really what we're really creating is set and setting for people. Yeah. So if I tell you to close your eyes, and I tell you to put on a headset and listen to the music and the beats, and we get you into a theta brainwave state. Mm-hmm. And then we lead you through a beautiful guided journey. That's that, I'm creating set and setting for you. If you would like, I'm not saying that this is the answer for everybody, but I think it's, if you're going on a psychedelic journey, we can do that, just with something that you can download. Or, if you're a little scared of the psychedelics, let's do this, experience this without it, and you get a taste of what it could be like.
I love that. I love that we're tapping into the more experienced magic mushroom users, and then the ones who are new to this too.
Yeah.
So, Jaden, this has been such an interesting, fun, energetic dialogue that we've had today. And I want to thank you so much for all that you are doing and have done in the world. And thank you for being vulnerable, sharing your story, sharing Nathan's story today, and just being really positive and uplifting. I love your energy. I feel that it's obvious that your Steamy Kitchen is growing, and now your new ventures are growing. You have a beautiful energy and you can feel it. I can feel it.
Oh, thank
and I
you.
know that everyone listening and watching will be able to feel this. So mention to us one more time what your websites are, so that way everyone knows where to find you.
Perfect. Well, the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. It's Magic and Glow Co. Spelled out, and spelled out. And so that I'm on Instagram every day. Magicandglow.com is the website. And, for the food stuff, it's Steamy Kitchen. But, these days, everyone wants to learn about microdosing. Everybody wants to learn about improving their lives and, being free, emotional well-being. That's just so important right now. So thank you for everything that you do in your podcast and, everything that you stand for.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.